listening to the Spoke Hobo podcast.
Yes, you are listening to the Spoke Hobo podcast. Join me, Spoke Hobo, as we explore cycling, bicycles, the way we ride, where we ride, and why we ride. Today's topic, bike trails or bike routes. A few weeks ago, Cycling News made an announcement about a bike route from Wyoming to Minneapolis. It would mostly be roads with some existing trails here and there. Is this something to be excited about? Well, yes, of course, but we need to have a conversation about a nationwide trail instead of bike route. The current U.S. bike routes are great. Hard-fought routes through scenic areas on existing roads with shoulders, bike lanes, and, well, sometimes maybe some gravel alongside. But think about it. We have railroads, pipelines, power grid right-of-ways that traverse the nation in every direction. So how about just one nationwide bike trail? How about a trail from Chicago to St. Louis or from St. Louis to Nashville? I think everyone could accept the fact that it wouldn't be paved the whole way, and due to property rights, it would probably be alongside major roads frequently. I think about the times when I'm riding on a U.S. bike route. I'm on a road that has no shoulder at all, not even gravel, just basically you have the white line at the edge of the road, and then it just goes right to grass. And there's always a state or county, whatever, right of way where often they'll run power lines underground or cable or whatever like that. They have to have access to that. So it's usually a strip right alongside that road. I always look at that and say, boy, with all these cars just speeding past my hip, wouldn't it be nice to just be on a little gravel? Be nice if it was paved. I know, probably not going to happen, but just a nice gravel trail to ride on along this, bike route in a safe manner. It could be just 4 or 5 feet off the road, wouldn't have to be that wide, wouldn't be that hard to maintain. When you're riding along one of these state routes, it's not hard to get out of your mind that there's a potential danger doing that. You think about distracted drivers. Is the next car behind you paying attention? Are they texting? Whatever. We've all heard the stories, and there have been many stories I'm sure you've heard on the news or through other cyclists about a distracted driver. Just think when you're driving down an interstate highway and you see all those skid marks going off in the road. You often see signs run over. You always see tire marks going through the mud. You don't know the story behind it, but somehow somebody wasn't paying attention. So you try to keep that out of your mind and you just try to enjoy the ride. And if you're bike touring these days in the United States, you're going to be on these kind of roads all of the time. I think about the time when I was watching a documentary on the Great American Race, which is basically a race of bike touring. You go from one coast to the other, and you get to meet all the different characters on there, very interesting people. And one gentleman was a surgeon. I think he was just retired. And about halfway through the documentary, he was killed by a distracted driver. It's really sad. Everybody on the crew was crying. They actually had a roadside meeting on, should they just stop filming the documentary? We can't go on. This is a horrible thing. And after a little debate, they came up with the fact that he probably would have wanted them to, finish the documentary. So they did. But it just goes to show you, the more you put yourself out there, the higher the risk. Bike touring is getting very popular for not only the adventure that it provides, but it's actually a low-cost vacation when you really think about it. Just packing some camping gear, or maybe you're going to do it with a credit card. You stay at some cheap motels along the way. Either way, you'd be surprised how far you can get on just $500. People need an affordable getaway for their mental well-being. The thing nobody talks about these days is the shrinking middle class. The cross-country flight to a destination to spend $2,000 is slipping away for some Americans. But an adventure with a bicycle, touring the nation by themselves or with family and friends, is within their reach. Unless you are absolutely poor and destitute, you can get a bike on Craigslist for $50 to $100. Heck, if you even tell a sad story, someone will probably give you one for free. There are camping options, and you don't have to do the whole route. Just do your own state. You can make that an adventure just in a couple of days. The American public needs to recapture its adventurous spirit. It's in our DNA. The economic effect to small towns along the way is also welcome. Camping, hotels, stores, and restaurants. When discussing the idea of a nationwide bike trail, will there be obstacles to its development? Well, there always is. Many landowners will be opposed. Can you blame them? You figure you have bought a large piece of land out in the country, whether you're going to be farming it or you just want to get away from the city. You've paid all the money, you've paid all the taxes, you've developed your land the way you want it, and along comes an organization or the state, and they're saying, we're bringing a bike path right through your property. And maybe you do things on that property that may not work with people cycling by. Maybe you like to hunt on your property, or you just want the peace and quiet, and that's the whole reason you spent all the money to get that land. I can totally relate to that. I've never owned a large piece of land, but I look at other people's situations and how they work for them, and I could definitely sympathize with somebody who invested all this money and said, you know what, I bought this land because there wasn't a bike trail going through here. So you're going to have that kind of problem, and you're going to have to work that out. That's why I said in the beginning that you're probably going to have a lot of areas in the trail where it just has to be alongside a major road because there were certain landowners who just absolutely were opposed to it. And that's okay. There's going to be some state land you'll be able to go through, so you'll probably be in and out of urban to suburban to out in the middle of nowhere. But sometimes on a long ride, it's kind of nice to get back into civilization for a little while. You might want to stock up on some, stuff for your ride, or need to get your bike worked on. So it's things like that probably wouldn't be that bad anyway. We can't let things like landowner opposition discourage us. We'll simply have to work around it so everybody's happy. There's never been a better time to push big on this. COVID, the environment, physical fitness, cue in the politician. What about jobs? There's always people looking for work in the trades. Whenever you have a project this size, it's always going to provide a lot of construction jobs. As I mentioned, we have the COVID-19 situation. And I don't know if you've noticed, but if you've been out on your local bike trail lately, there are a lot of people out there that weren't out there last year. There's a problem with bike availability right now. There's a shortage of parts, and it all falls back on people are looking for something affordable to do, an adventure, somewhere they can go with, like I said, with their friends, their family, or all by themselves. And right now, in the current pandemic, which is, I'm sure, is going away soon, we're hoping next year we'll be past all this. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But right now, it kind of shows us that Americans need something to fall back on instead of the big ways we do vacations and entertainment. We need something else. And there are some people out there that never really have had the money to do those kind of things anyway. And they also, too, need something they can do. I mentioned the environment. People are concerned with the impact humans are having on the earth these days. Well, imagine if hundreds of thousands of people in the United States in the summertime decided to take their bicycles for their vacation instead of cars, campers, and airplanes. And then there's the physical fitness factor, and everybody has a different opinion on how they get their physical fitness or why they get their physical fitness. So we're not going to get involved in that too much in this discussion, but we can all agree that anybody that decides to use their bicycle for their vacation will certainly be getting their physical fitness in for that week or for how long it is. But getting back to the environment, is there a reason cars are going electric in the future? Is the future outlook on fossil fuels dwindling? Can we continue to vacation the way we have for the last 60 years? Remember when gas hit $4.50 a gallon in 2008? Regional tourism took a big hit. Restaurants, hotels, amusement parks, people stopped doing those things because they had to fit in this gasoline into their budget. And I remember seeing the news stories and reading articles in the paper. A lot of businesses were blaming the big downturn on that summer just on the fact that people told them they just couldn't afford the gas anymore. If gas goes to $5 a gallon, no one is going to drive 100 miles to go pick apples like some city folks do. All it takes is a war situation in the Middle East or a natural disaster to make oil skyrocket. For this situation, I would like to compare the nationwide bike trail to the interstate highway system. In a lot of cases, historically, but not all, the interstate highway system was built before it was needed. So when it was needed, it was already there. We need that same mentality for nationwide bike trails linking cities. I'm certainly not the first to say it, but the bicycle will be a large part of our transportation mix in the coming decades. Not the major way we will get around, but one of the ways, along with gas and electric cars and public transportation. You know, it might sound like science fiction, but if you believe in an endless supply of F-150s burning an endless supply of gas, or more to the point, a seamless transition to 200 million Teslas crisscrossing the nation, then you might believe in science fiction yourself. The humble bicycle will fill in the gaps for a future that still has cars. We just can't use them as much. But let's get back to the here and now. So the only question left is how. How do we do this? Unfortunately, politics is half the equation. Imagine trying to influence a politician to do something that will probably not affect the re-election. The best possible way is through cycling organizations with the bicycle riding community's help, which means us, you and me, kicking in a few bucks for the extensive lobbying that will have to be done. I have no clue how many cyclists there are in America, certainly in the millions. Now times that by $5. That's a nice little starter pack of lobbying money to catch the attention of the Washington crowd. Nothing makes ideas come to life faster when they're wrapped in cash. So, what's happening right now then? Enter the Great American Rail Trail, a project which is the vision of the Rails to Trails Conservancy. It's a multi-use trail from D.C. to Washington State. It's 50% completed, but it's already existing trails of various surfaces in 12 states. But 50% doesn't mean halfway done. It's patchwork. You currently have to leapfrog from trail to trail using streets and roads. Most will be bike routes at least. Sections east of the Mississippi are notably long. In Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. West of the Mississippi, huge sections are just proposed. There are some, but that western half is the major part of the unfinished 50%. The Rails to Trails Conservancy says it might take decades to complete. Not their timeline, just how the political mindset works on these things. One 70-mile section goes through the suburbs of Chicago. That's an overall metro area of about 9.5 million people. So the numbers add up for users in one small section of the proposed 3,000 plus miles. When it's completed, we can do better as a nation and complete this trail now. I highly advise you to go to their website and see the project for yourself. In the 1800s, a cross-country railroad inspired hundreds of short-line railroads to be built and attached to the main route. I would like to think that history will repeat itself again. The American public needs to recapture its adventurous spirit, not at 75 miles an hour, but at a speed more human. Adventure, it's in our DNA. An interstate bike trail system is something to be proud of, and for a whole lot of reasons, might be necessary. Well, that's all I have to say for the moment on this. Thank you for your time, and thanks for listening. Till we meet again, tailwinds on all of your travels. This is Spoke Hobo saying, see you on the next podcast.